Another housekeeping piece that we want to remind you is that we do have somebody monitoring the chat box. So if you have any questions, please make sure that you type in your questions in the chat box, and we'll be having time to answer those in appropriate times through the agenda. If you are a person that is doing a phone-in call, if you do need to talk or ask a question, you can press *6 to unmute yourself and ask your question. And I think that's pretty much our housekeeping, our quick housekeeping pieces. I already have a hand.
Yeah, this is easy.
There you go.
Rob Ryder. My two replacements are online. One of them's Mike Ryder, who will be the Director of Operations for Southeastern Ohio Solid Waste District. The other one will be Alex Hayes, who will be over all the office and fiscal management. And I'll be going December 31st, my last day.
Wow. Well, congratulations on your retirement.
I hope I live that long.
I don't know who will be the senior guy after you leave, Rob.
Mike.
Well, no, I mean within all the solid waste district coordinators.
Well,
Carol Phillips left, so Mike, we're glad to have you on board. Looking forward to meeting you in person.
Looking forward to meeting you, Matt.
All right. So again, for those that have just joined us, I just want to say hi. I'm Lindsay Graham, and many of you have, obviously, you got the invite and the reminder in the agenda from me. So now you have a face to put. I am the new unit planner here, the Solid Waste District planner. I cover the Northwest Ohio is my designated territory, but we do work across the state as a team. So if you do have any questions or need anything, feel free to reach out to any of us. But I'm welcome. I'm very thankful that I'm here on the team and ready to assist wherever is needed. We will be muting everybody's mics in just a second. So if you haven't already, we're going to do that for you. And if you have any questions, please put those in the chat box. We do have somebody monitoring those throughout the call. Any other housekeeping things, Jeff? I think we're good.
I think I should cover it.
All righty. We're going to start with our updates, and Michelle Mountjoy, who is our rules coordinator, is going to do a brief update on the rules.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Mountjoy. I'm the DMWIM rules coordinator, and what's going on in our rule world right now is that it's the end of the year, so probably like you, we're winding down on all of our rule efforts until next year when session starts again for the legislature in January 3rd. But as we finish up this year, a couple of noteworthy accomplishments that we'll be trying to wrap up are the solid waste fee rules. Those went through their 5-year review this past year in 2022, and we will be making those. We're tentatively thinking we're going to make those rules effective maybe the 1st of next year. So any of the fee rule changes that you've been reviewing, you can expect those to go into effect early next year. And the same goes for our solid waste incinerator and solid waste energy recovery facility rules. Those were on a similar track as the fee rules, and they will be also going effective early next year. For next year, a couple of our targeted efforts are going to start at least with the scrap tire rules. A lot of you might have seen that those rules went out for interested party comment about fall this past year. And so we're working on making any changes we need to make in response to comments received. And we're hoping to file those with the legislature, with JCAR, early next year. We're hoping in January or February, because those were also a 5-year review effort. But if you remember, those rules are currently housed in OAC Chapter 3745-27, and they will be moving to 3745-580. So it'll be everything will look new, but we're hoping that we can make them a little bit better and a little bit more easier to comply with in their new chapter. And we're also looking at landfill rules. Specifically, we're looking at 2719, which is the landfill operation rule. We're working right now on getting a draft available for interested party comment. It's also going to be moving out of its current home. So its current home is 2719. It's also going to be moving to give it some more space. Currently it's like a 20-page rule. So we're hoping to move it and give it some more space and allow for better readability there. And then behind that will be the solid waste landfill groundwater monitoring rule. So again, that one will also be moving out of 3745-2710 because it is a much bigger rule. I think it's 40 pages in that location. So we're going to try to break that out and just make it a little bit easier to manage in a new location. Other than that, I'm going to let you guys go. If you have any questions, shoot me an email or I can answer anything now. Thanks, Lindsay.
Thank you for joining us and giving us that update. I appreciate it. Next up is Jeff Monavon, and he will give us an update on a new plastic survey.
Thanks, Lindsay. Several end users of recovered HDPE plastic in Ohio are investigating ways to increase the quantity. So I think we're getting some echo. Yeah. You all hear an echo there? What's that?
Try turning up the volume on your computer, Jeff.
I'll just do it. Is that what it is? Okay.
How are we now? Okay, so just real quick, several end users have recovered HDPE plastic in Ohio are investigating ways to increase the quantity and quality of material they're receiving. So to get an idea of how much material is received by publicly owned and operated MRFs, Ohio EPA sent a survey earlier this week to solid waste management districts with publicly owned MRFs in their districts. So we appreciate all of you who completed the survey. If you haven't completed the survey, I just want to remind you that you have until next Friday, December 9th to complete it. It should only take about 5 minutes to complete. So the survey was only sent to districts with publicly owned MRFs. So if you have a publicly owned MRF in your district and you didn't receive the survey, just send me an email and I'd be glad to email the link to you. So that's all we've got on that. So Lindsay, send them back to you.
All right, next up is Matt Hiddle, and he is going to just do a review of the drop-off grant update.
Hi, everybody. As you are likely aware, the drop-off contamination program or grant was closed on November 18th, and we're happy we got 7 completed applications in, and the recycling partnership is in the process of reviewing those. We will be meeting with them next week to discuss their reviews and sort of get close to finalizing who those selected applicants will be who will receive the grant. So look for more information on that coming soon. That's all I got.
Thank you, Matt. And we do want to thank those districts that took the time to look into the grant and take the time to apply for the recycling drop-off grant. It's our first attempt with the public drop-offs. It mimicked the curbside, but we do appreciate those solid waste districts that did take the time to apply and look into it. Next, we are going to move to Michelle Balls for the Oswego updates. Thanks for joining us today, Michelle.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I'm sorry, I was sick earlier this week, so I sound a little froggish. I apologize. I might have to pause to take a drink of tea. But first, I wanted to let everyone know we had our first in-person meeting November 10th for Oswego at the State Library since before COVID. So it was great. The State Library was fantastic. Their facilities have much improved since the last time I was there. Their facility and the staff assistance was great. So, and they were really helpful getting the hybrid meeting set up. So I highly recommend them as a place if you need to have a hybrid meeting. They were super helpful. We did vote on the 2023 board for Oswego, and the president will be Erica Tucker with RPHS. And the vice president will be Lou Vega from Mahoning. So thank you to them for stepping up and serving in those roles. And then we did pull together meetings for next year. We usually have 4 Oswego meetings. So I think that we are going to have them February 2nd, May 11th, August 10th, and November 2nd of next year. And I was talking to Lindsay about possibly doing either the May or the August meeting in person in conjunction with this meeting like we used to. I think for people like me who have a 2-hour drive to Columbus, it does feel more productive to have more than one 2-hour meeting, that you're driving for. So if it's possible, if Ohio EPA and everyone else would be on board, I think it would be good if we tried to do that May or August meeting together. So think about that. That would be May 11th or August 10th. And then just one last update. We do have some legislative committee work that will be continuing on into 2023. In particular, household hazardous waste related, but we have a few other topics that we're working with the CCAO on. So that's my update.
Fantastic. It sounds like you guys have been busy at your last meeting. And we would love to have the all day the 2 on one day. So hopefully the rest of the team will be acceptive and we'll come up with either May or August or even both. So we'll see what happens with that in the future. So I'm sure correspondence will be sent out as more discussions happen in the first of the year. All right, now it comes to our next big piece. And since I joined the team here the 1st of October, I've been working on the work group project. And so it's kind of nice to have this day come. But one of the biggest pieces of the work group was our panel discussion. And today's panel is all about artificial intelligence technology and the ways to improve recycling. So our first panel presenter is going to be Jason Gates. He is with Roadrunner Recycling, which you probably have heard it as also as Compology. It was what it was. Now it's Roadrunner, because that's what I started out as knowing you as, Jason. I'm sorry. But the transition just happened within the time that I've been here, which has been like 10 weeks. So I'm going to turn it over to Jason, and you can share your screen and tell us a little bit more about what you do at Roadrunner.
Great. Thank you, Lindsay. And thank you, everybody, for having me. I'm Jason Gates. I am one of the co-founders and the CEO at Compology. Up until the beginning of October, we were a standalone entity, and we recently completed our merger with Roadrunner Recycling. Roadrunner offers a lot of different services within the waste and recycling industry, but today we're going to focus on Compology specifically. So you'll see all the branding will still be Compology, and the technology will be Compology specific. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And I've got a couple slides to guide the conversation, and we'll make sure that we have time for questions at the end. So can I just get a quick confirmation that you can see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great.
And we can hear you.
So today, what I am thrilled to be talking to you about is the concept of waste metering, specifically for contamination reduction. And I'll start with a high-level overview of what waste metering is, simple explanations on how the technology works, and then we'll get into some very specific examples of how the technology is applied. At the end, we can talk a little bit about some of the grant opportunities that waste metering is eligible for. So at a high level, what is waste metering? What we do is we put cameras inside front and rear load dumpsters, typically between 2 and 8 cubic yards. And we take pictures several times a day as the container fills up. And you can see that picture on the left of the screen here is an image from the inside of a front load dumpster at night. You can see that it's pretty well illuminated. We send those images up through the cell network, where we use our artificial intelligence to automatically process the images and determine a couple key attributes. So we look at counts of specific items of contamination. We look at the fullness of the container, and we're able to verify service and compare that against scheduled service events. We take all that information and package it into a couple different products. Specifically, when it comes to contamination, we are very proactive with education, and we like delivering that education through the channels that people are interacting with on a day-to-day basis. So email and text message are our primaries. And you can see in that image on the right, an individual is receiving a text message with a picture from the inside of their dumpster that says, hey, you've got some contamination in that container. We recommend that you remove it before the truck comes the next morning. So we have the analysis, the education delivery, and then of course there's reporting on the back end to slice the data in any which way that's most helpful. So the camera itself, I'll hold one up. This is the 13th generation of our camera. You can see it fits directly into the palm of my hand, but these cameras are battle tested and have demonstrated that they can last at least 5 years inside a commercial front or rear load container. The batteries are one-time use, so there's no need to worry about going out and replacing batteries, and they mount in about 5 minutes per container through 4 security screws, so relatively quick installation. So deeper dive on contamination functionality specifically. The way that our system works is that each image that comes in, we're analyzing for material that does not conform to a specification. And that specification can be set on a per jurisdiction basis, depending on your specific regulations. The image on the left is a container that's supposed to be used specifically for clean cardboard. The subsequent directly next image is from the same container just a couple hours later. And you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, a metal chair has been added to that clean cardboard container, which is not clean cardboard, right? So we're able to highlight that and count that specifically as one count of contamination that we would then be able to report back. Our contamination counting covers 6 primary categories within recycling containers. And within each one of those categories, we have thousands and thousands of specific items that we're able to identify. So the examples on the right are really representative, but what we want to convey is that we have a 98% accuracy in when Compology says there is an item of contamination, it is actually present. We always err on the side of undercounting versus overcounting, right? We don't want false alarms, but we are very accurate in when we say there's styrofoam in there, there is styrofoam. On the traditional definition of contamination is non-conforming material in recycling containers. Compology has taken a little bit of an expanded definition of contamination. And we also look at, is there a recyclable material in landfill garbage containers? And the primary example there is clean cardboard. An interesting statistic is that about 10% of what is being put into commercial front load trash containers is clean cardboard that can ultimately be diverted. And one of the recommendations that we're making most commonly is, hey, if all you did was take your cardboard out of your trash container and put it into the recycling container that's right next to it, you'd be able to reduce service levels for your trash and divert more waste from landfills. Today, Compology's primary customer base is Fortune 500 brands with distributed real estate portfolios. This is a selection of some brands that you may recognize. We have over 1,300 different customers today. And I wanted to provide a variety of examples where we work with quick service restaurants, retailers, big office parks, and even some defense contractors who have very strict security requirements. So we're used to working with companies that scrutinize technology, and we meet all of those requirements. But we have a growing business with municipalities, and this is a selection of some of the municipal installations that Compology has today. There's been we even have one in Cincinnati at I was looking on the instance of the application the other day, and many of the containers are installed at the zoo. So helping with recycling efforts at the zoo, which I think is pretty cool. And there's been a couple municipal sponsored research projects that I wanted to share with you. So the first one was in 2018. It was sponsored by SBWMA, which is a group of solid waste districts in California. It was a relatively small proof of concept program, a $40,000 program, where the goal was really to just demonstrate the efficacy of cameras as a tool that solid waste companies can use to combat contamination. And so we installed on about 132 commercial front load trash recycling and organics containers across 12 different cities. The result was very clear that, and Joe LaMariana, the executive director, was clear in his messaging that there's a limit to what people can do manually, and the remote monitoring offered a really strong complement to that to ease the burden on staff and increase the ability for staff to monitor more containers and deliver more education. So in the presentation, which I think will be shared, there's a full written case study and a public report from this first proof of concept. In 2019, we directly followed that with a four-way partnership. This was a little bit of a larger program at $263,000 with the Bay Area Air Quality Management District and Stop Waste. This is related specifically to some new regulations in California called SB 1383, which is a landfill diversion effort. And the goal here was to provide consistent, highly targeted education to businesses in order to reduce contamination, specifically within organics. And what we did here is we started by installing Compology cameras in all commercial front load organics containers in a city here in California, Livermore. This started in 2019. The funding was for 1 year of the project, and the results were so impressive that Livermore Sanitation, the solid waste company that owns the franchise agreement, has continued the contract directly with Compology. So after the grant subsidy was finished, they now pay directly for the program to continue. And we've seen an 80% reduction in contamination in those organic containers over time, as well as a 20% reduction in collection costs. I always get the question, well, this all sounds great. How does Compology pay for itself? And the number one return on investment is from being able to right size containers. And so contamination reduction is excellent and certainly helps with landfill diversion and providing those cleaner streams. It is extremely hard to quantify that as a cost savings on a per container basis, which would justify using a waste metering system. However, a product that we offer called automated right sizing, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's taking the decades old method of adjusting service schedules and container sizes for what's actually happening at a specific address to reduce cost. We just automate that process using actual data from the inside of the container. So a fun statistic is that on average, when a new customer comes to Compology, the average fullness of a container is 51%. The average fullness of a municipal container is 32%. So even lower, and offers further optimizations within right sizing. What we do is we measure the fullness of that container over time, and then automatically recommend new service schedules based on what that address would actually need. And typically what we see is a 30 to 40% reduction in collection costs, which most of the case studies that we have and the quantifiable return on investment are, as I mentioned, our clients are primarily Fortune 500 brands who are count every penny. And with McDonald's, the average savings that a McDonald's restaurant sees per year is about $3,300 per dumpster per year. So that's a 14 times return on investment annually for them. Google, in more of the office space, is saving $2,700 per dumpster per year, which for them is an 11 times return on investment annually. So the return is very consistent. And today, Compology has some great work with the recycling partnership, and I think we'll hear about that a little bit more today. But we've also worked to partner very closely with the US EPA and the pool of money that is becoming available for recycling and contamination reduction grants. So if there is interest in applying for some of those funds, whether it be for the data collection or education delivery, it's an area in which that I'm personally involved very deeply, and would happy to provide consultation on what might be an appropriate grant application and project to apply for funding at the federal level. So I know that was a lot of information relatively quickly. I will pause there and open up the floor for any questions.
We have 2 questions that have come in, and the first one is there a subscription in like a yearly, monthly? How does that process work?
Great question. Our business model offers 2 different ways to buy the service. One is on a pure monthly recurring subscription, where you can pay per camera per month. The other is to pay for a full contract term in full upfront. And the benefit of doing that is there is some additional discount, but it also allows you to capitalize that purchase. And typically, when applying for government grant funding, the second option, so the purchasing for a full contract in full upfront, is the preferred method.
Are these installed on, like, because a lot of our solid waste districts have a private hauler? Are they installed on the private hauler's containers?
Most of the time, our cameras are installed on private hauler containers. We have very strong relationships with brands ranging from Waste Management, Republic Services, to Rumpke and many other local haulers. And we find that if you just put the cameras on the containers and don't tell waste haulers about it, they are typically not pleased and will remove the cameras. However, we take a very collaborative approach, reach out to those haulers, include them in the process. For example, in California, in Livermore, we included Livermore Sanitation as a participant in the grant. We allowed them to weigh in on the process, the grant writing itself. And when they're included that way, we find that the private haulers are willing participants and will allow for the installation of the cameras. The number one thing that we hear as a point of contention from private haulers is damage to containers. And the installation of the camera requires 4 small holes to be drilled, but we also have a patch kit. So if the camera is removed, we can also patch the container and return it to its pre-installation condition. And so that's the way that we address that concern.
Awesome. And I'm assuming that the solid waste district or the person that you're in contract would be responsible for the camera if there would happen to be like a dumpster fire or something of that nature.
In our subscription, we include, it's effectively a perpetual warranty. And so no, in fact, if there is damage to a device, Compology takes full responsibility for ensuring that there's a new device that gets installed. We also have installation and maintenance services, which can be contracted separately. We've got about 70 installers across the United States and Canada who are doing work for us every day. And we also have the option where if you want to self-perform that work, we have tools to enable that as well.
Awesome. We have a couple questions, one more question that we're going to take. I did see a hand up, so we'll ask that question. The cameras on the location, are they placed in a certain location that, you know, where are they at on the bin? And does that camera have the ability to report like the number of customers and the date that the times that people were dropped off?
So the camera is installed if you're facing the front of the container. It is in the back right corner, typically mounted as high, close to the top of the container as possible. So you get a really wide field of view. And that installation position does need to be consistent. That is one of our requirements, but we do allow for some variability. So if the container is warped or damaged in our ideal location, we can move it. But it does need to be on that right side of the container. The second part of the question in terms of counting, is that about counting service events? Could you clarify?
Yeah, just can it identify like the number of times people drop off? I mean, is it taking a picture every time? Can it identify the number of people dropping off and like the service time? So out in the middle of nowhere, there's a lot of times that, you know, it might be vacant for a period of time. Can it tell us what time the service time is that people are using?
I understand. We cannot tell a specific time when a lid is opened and a piece of material is added. The way that the system works is that we take images on a relatively set schedule. There's a little bit of variation each day based on system loading, but The way that we address that problem specifically is kind of our standard implementation is an average of about it averages to about 5 pictures per day. However, we have the ability to tune that on the back end, all through software. So we have some customers that want an image every hour during daylight hours, for example. And while that can't give you a specific time of drop off, that can provide data on time windows. So you know that how much material was added between noon and 1 p.m., for example.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. I do see you, Rob. If you will unmute and ask your question, you'll be our last question.
Yeah, how much accessory hardware is required with the camera? I mean, as far as, wiring, maybe a recording device.
Great question. So if you see my video here, the camera is fully enclosed in this case. So there's a steel shield on this side. There's 4 mounting screws, and then this hardened polycarbonate case. Everything is included in here. It comes in a box, ready to install. So there's nothing else that you need to put on the container.
So what does it have? An SD card, or how do you get your pictures?
We have the primary components. There's a camera. There's a microcontroller, which is like you can think of it a lot like the same chips that are in your iPhone.
Right.
There's a cellular modem and a GPS.
Okay.
So, yep, we take the pictures. We can store them on the device for several days if we don't have access to cellular connectivity for any reason. And then we send the images through the cell network up to the cloud, and we store every image that we've ever taken in the cloud. I have the first image from 2013 from the first prototype camera that we built. We still use it as part of our training set of data for our artificial intelligence.
And it's not possible to have the cameras motion activated?
Like a hunting trail camera, unfortunately not. And the reason for that is battery life. So we opted to make our cameras last at least 5 years in the field without having to replace the battery. And we found that any motion activation dramatically decreases that battery life and puts it more in the orders of magnitude of months. And most of our clients didn't find that cost benefit to weigh out.
Okay, thanks.
Fantastic. All right, Jason, thank you so much. We do need to move on. If you do have any other additional questions, please make sure that you put those in the chat. And if we don't get to them today, we will manage to get those to our presenters and get you an answer back. Next up is John Menier from Montgomery County. He is going to present on a project that they are working on that uses the Compology Roadrunner technology, I believe.
And if you could just let me know that you can see the presentation. Okay.
We can see it.
I will try and get through this. Good morning, everybody. And Rob, to you, congratulations on your retirement. You have been around for quite a while, and you're certainly going to be missed, especially your expertise and knowledge. So congratulations to you. So we have the Montgomery County Solid Waste District has a grant program where we offer to municipalities, businesses, universities, education centers, schools, etc. The opportunity to apply for grants that focus on the activities that you can see here on the screen. And these are competitive grants, much like any other type of grant. It's a 70-30 match, with the exception of pilot projects such as Pay As You Throw, or this particular project, which is going to use some AI technology that we'll talk about here later. So this particular grant that we're looking at for this program is going to be using the district incentive grant, and it's with the, again, with the city of Dayton. We've been looking at the company that we're working with is called Prairie Robotics. They're a Canadian company. I've been talking with them for a little over a year now, and we had some conference calls with Ohio EPA because I wanted to get Chet and some of the other team, Matt's opinions and thoughts on the company. So they did a presentation, and we've been looking kind of for the right project. We did the Recycle Partnership grant with the city of Centerville, where we used feet on the ground, and we were real pleased with the outcomes of the data that we had there. But an opportunity presented itself to work with Prairie Robotics on the city of Dayton. City of Dayton has approximately 63,000 households that'll be a part of this study. Basically the the goals of the project are, we want to, of course, as always, establish a baseline, do an education program for what's being captured on the cameras, and then also increase community awareness for the City of Dayton's app. As you can see on the screen, they have an app like many municipalities do nowadays, and to try to drive that citizens to that program. And that app is powered by, I think, Recollect. So we're going to talk a little bit this morning about how this program works, and I'm going to try and see if I can get this video to work. But this will kind of show you, this is a commercial side loader. There's no sound to this, so no worries. But it captures a picture when the material is dropped in. There's a GPS that locates the address. And once it does that, it starts doing some analytics and education material building. Here you can see a heat imagery that will actually pick up where the high levels of contamination are, the address areas, neighborhoods, etc. So there's, in meeting with the city of Dayton to talk about whether they would be interested in applying for this grant, they've got some other applications that are going to be used along with this. They have a lot of alleys that they work with, so identification of carts being at the right location with the right addresses is going to be another part of the project, and there'll be some other things that go along with it. But the primary focus of the project is to identify a household that has contamination, take a picture of what those contaminants are, and then get that message to them very quickly. One of the positive processes that we have with this is that they do have a partnership with Recollect. So if that particular Prairie Robotics does, as well as the city of Dayton, so not only can they send information through the mail, they can also, if that customer is a signed up member for the City of Dayton's app, then they will also get some digital messaging about the contamination, so that it'll be more live at that time, and the resident can possibly go out and remove that contamination. So there's some interesting positives to this. Again, this is a pilot project for us. It's a one-time We're not purchasing the equipment at this time. We're doing this more for the analytics of the AI technology and see how that kind of compares to a technology like the feet on the ground. This system is based on visual analytics versus weight analytics. So that's one of the things I'm kind of curious to see how those two comparisons work out. So the project itself, here's kind of a quick timeline for when we plan on doing the project. We're right now in the process of getting all the agreements and everything signed up and executed, which will probably be in January. The city of Dayton's going through a rerouting and ASL implementation process. So that'll finish up in March, and then we will start the project in April, doing some of the analytics, and then begin in May to do the educational information that'll go out. And then, of course, then in August, like every one of these types of programs, there'll be a post audit that is performed to provide, what the improvement baseline. We'll receive a final report be able to have some evaluation on the efficacy of the program. Oops, sorry, my fingers are sliding around here. So here's some of the materials, education material postcards that can be sent out. They'll have QR codes that the customer can link up to if they want to sign up for the City of Dayton's app, and also some information on what they can and or should or should not recycle as well, and any other information that is attached. On the City of Dayton's app, the Solid Waste District is also linked on that app. So if they're searching for household hazardous waste information, it will take them to our website. So their app also helps drive traffic to our website and also to our programs here at the facility. Again, here's some information on the postcard design and information that can be sent out digitally. There have been some pilot projects and some programs that are communities that are existing. This is a community up in Canada that Prairie Robotics partnered with, and you can see the number of audits, the number of postcards that were sent out, and again, a percentage of contamination that was decreased. Again, that's based on visual analytics versus actual weights as far as the reduction in contamination. The nice thing about that is it also is very specific to households. So, if a customer wants to know how they did, we will be able to go back into that data and pull that data specifically. Here is some of the reports that are going to be included. It'll give you, specific dates and times over a period of time, and the level of contaminants on a per household basis. That kind of give you an idea of when you start and then when you finish. This is a highly collaborative project with the City of Dayton, Prairie Robotics, Recollect, and also Montgomery County. We talked to 3 other communities as well. One important thing I should point out, Montgomery County, when we're looking at doing this, we're focusing on communities that self-collect. So City of Dayton has their own collection crews and trucks. City of Centerville, City of Oakwood, and City of West Carrollton collects their own trash. They subcontract out for the recycling. But we're focusing on those communities first. We are looking at doing this, if this project is successful, looking at the potential of doing it countywide. And that's all I had. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
John, thank you so much for presenting this information and telling us a little bit of how your grant project works. And I was just talking to Jeff that you guys are always doing something down there, and it's very nice to see you thinking outside the box and expanding on this. We do have one hand. Beth, if you will unmute and ask your question.
Good morning, John.
Good morning. You're the one person that's not allowed to ask a question.
Okay. I'll make it short, I promise. We have been very interested in this company also. My question to you then is, you said you were doing this as a pilot. So are you doing this citywide in Dayton or route-wide? And could you elaborate a little bit based on kind of the scope of what you're going to be, collecting data on? Is, for example, if it's a route, is that just what percentage of the entire population? If you could just elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah, a great question, Elizabeth. What we're doing, Beth, is this is going to be through the entire city. So about 65,000 households, approximately 5 trucks the equipment will be mounted on. We are not purchasing the equipment. This, again, is more of a pilot project leasing option that we elected to take. There is an option to potentially buy the equipment if the city of Dayton deems that this has some value and benefit for them on a long-term basis. If they do that, then they can apply for another grant, and that will be out for 2024 to do that. But that is that's kind of the overview of how many households and the number of trucks that will be mounting the equipment on. That answer your question?
Yes, and I have a follow-up. So maybe you could go back to your timeline slide. How long is the period that you're going to run this? Is this, yep, that one. Is it, so it's a quarter then, 3 months, May through July, that you'll be utilizing the equipment, or is it a longer period of time?
No, it's a longer period. It's 6 months.
6 months, okay, so it's.
Yeah, it starts it'll start at the end of March, and we will be doing a baseline data collection in the month of April. And then the education process will be approximately 3 months, May through July. And then August will be the post data review. So we will go back through and do another analytics process, very similar to what we did in April, to see how much contamination was, eliminated. And then in September, the final month will be basically the final project closeout and final report that we will get.
Perfect, thank you.
And quickly, can you give us an estimate about how much this project is going to cost?
Yeah, this project costs us $425,000. I'm kidding. it didn't cost us that much. The grant is for round numbers, slightly under $70,000. Part of that is because we wanted to do the entire city. It could have been significantly cheaper if we would have picked a couple routes, but because we wanted to do the entire city, it was the cost was a little bit higher. The one thing that the city, the reason why they wanted to participate in this is because it is very difficult for them to get feet on the ground. For a city the size of Dayton, that was going to be a challenge for them. The other interest, of course, it was through a grant, and because it is a pilot project, there's not a match that they have to put up. So those were kind of the two motivating factors. We did, just so everybody knows, we did approach Centerville, and they liked the Feet on the Ground program, which is fine for us. We don't mind. We pay for the education of that program. There is a match for continuing the Recycle Partnership program. But this is what we're looking at. Is this going to be a continued option as another tool in our toolkit for reducing contamination?
Great job. Thanks again. Next, we have Kathy Trent from Waste Management, and she'll introduce her team. And they're going to talk about Waste Management Smart Trucks. Kind of a similar process.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Kathy Trent, Senior Public Affairs Manager for Waste Management in the Great Lakes area. And when Lindsay reached out to me a few weeks ago about this opportunity to present before the work group in the solid waste districts, I thought it would be a great opportunity to engage some other folks at WM that really have clear and deep vision into waste management's smart truck technology. And so I want to introduce two folks to you today, and they will give the presentation. And I think that you will enjoy hearing how we work together with some of our communities as well as some of the technology we are using. And I think it will align very well with what you've already heard. The first person I'll be introducing is Katie Wong. She's from our Corporate Public Sector Solutions Group. So Katie has experience across our enterprise in the country. And Katie, I believe you're located in Oregon. So she got up early today to have this opportunity to speak to you folks. The second person I'll introduce and then turn it over to them is Lisa Lawrence. Lisa is with our sales public sector group with this new technology for the Great Lakes area. So I think the two of these individuals will be able to give you great vision into what WM is doing. So Katie, I will go back on mute, turn my camera off, and turn it over to you. So thank you.
Awesome. And can you see our slides?
Yes, I can.
Fantastic. Okay. So, hi, I'm Katie. I'm actually from California, not Oregon, as Kathy mentioned, but still very early here. So Waste Management Smart Truck program is really more than just artificial intelligence or machine learning. It's a comprehensive solution that combines technology and customer education to provide education and insights that drive behavior change. So with this program, we're able to drive impact in 4 distinct areas. The first is in sustainability. With the WM Smart Truck technology, we can work with our communities to reduce contamination and identify additional recycling opportunities. 1 in 4 items placed in recycling bins is not actually recyclable. Processing and customer costs are increasing due to stringent quality standards. And we all know that recycling right is more essential to our economy now more than ever. So it's vital that we're able to provide this education and feedback to our customers, which leads us to the second area of focus, that's education. Through the program, we're able to provide direct, effective, and timely communications to our customers that close the feedback loop and give them the insights that they need to recycle right. The 80-20 rule suggests that 80% of impacts come from just 20% of customers. So with our Smart Truck program, we can provide feedback directly to that 20% with overage or contamination issues, and still have the opportunity to reach the larger population with general recycling education as well. Another important area of impact is health and safety. So not only does the WM Smart Truck technology help reduce overages in litter, which means cleaner neighborhoods, but it also has important safety impacts on our drivers. Keeping them in the cab of the truck instead of them having to get out to collect any materials outside of the carts or manually leave a contamination tag really reduces the risk and likelihood of injury. And then finally, the program has big customer service impacts for us. It gives us the ability to address customer complaints with evidence and speed. So how do we achieve these impacts with the WM Smart Truck technology? Our system uses a proprietary system of sensors and cameras to capture footage of containers as they're collected during service. We then utilize a double confirmation process where a dedicated team of trained technicians reviews the footage associated with each address to make sure materials were placed in the correct carts and were collected correctly. Finally, if a container associated with an address is contaminated or overloaded, we'll send an educational notification via email to the customer. And then because the technology gives us the potential to audit every container each time it's collected, it means we can automate the process and provide customers with education that's consistent, regular, and targeted to them. So quality, privacy, and protecting customer data are some of our top priorities. Some of the most common questions we get from customers and our municipal partners are, how can you tell that it's my cart that's contaminated? And what quality control measures are in place to ensure accuracy? And we can tell because our mounted cameras record each service. Every collection is reviewed and tied to a specific service address via location and telemetry. We partner with jurisdictions to create a tailored program around what is and is not acceptable in the recycling for each area. And then our technicians follow a standard protocol for review. Contamination and overages are reviewed and confirmed by technicians a second time before they would a customer notification would be sent. People often ask, is this the first time that cameras have been used on WM trucks? And it's actually not. We've been using cameras for many years to improve safety by assisting our drivers with rear and side view perspectives, along with documenting driving incidents. And then finally, what about privacy? Waste Management has pledged to never share the images or customer information with third parties for marketing or data mining. The photographs and videos that are collected through the technology are only used to educate and inform our customers and to improve collection service, recycling, and diverting materials away from the landfill. So now that we know how it works, let's talk a little bit about how we use the WM Smart Truck program to educate customers and drive the right behavior. So we've integrated some community-based social marketing principles like direct distribution and personal connection to increase the likelihood that people actually read these materials and act on the key messages and solutions that we're suggesting. We recommend whenever we roll out the Smart Truck program that we start with a 60-day education period focused on awareness and prevention. So this is a period for learning and setting clear expectations with our customers on what they can expect from the program. We have a variety of collateral that we work with our municipal partners to customize and distribute through multiple channels. And then we also have Lisa Lawrence here, who's the Smart Truck Program Manager for our Great Lakes area. So I'm going to pass it over to her to share some of the specific program education that is underway in the Ohio area.
Thank you, Katie. Hi, I'm Lisa Lawrence, as Katie mentioned. And for the Great Lakes area, customer communication is key when we begin the education period and notifications. So there will be a postcard mailed to the customer's address to initiate the Smart Truck education outreach. There will be 3 ramp-up communications that will be emailed to the customer educating them on Smart Truck. And then notifications will be sent out via email to the customer's address when non-acceptable materials are found, further assisting the customers to recycle right and see positive results.
Great. And then, one other thing I wanted to stress about those communications and all of our education that goes out is we really make an effort to encourage our customers to enable digital communications, as well as access solutions and self-service tools on MyWM on our website. So this allows us to communicate most effectively with our customers, and that's where they can view the footage or images of their service, and then access additional solutions like Recycle Right education tools, or things like adjusting their service levels. So, when all is kind of said and done, in some of our pilot areas where we've run the Smart Truck program, according to all of our best practices that we've just kind of described, we've seen contaminated carts reduce from as high as 20% or more down to as low as 1 to 2% of carts being collected having contamination, and that corresponds with a reduction in residuals that are sent to the landfill as well. So, finally, I just wanted to show you a sample of one of the communications that we send to customers if they had a contaminated or overfilled cart. You can see that the notification on the left here is personalized for the customer. It's just for them. It notes their service address and the date of the collection. This is the section where we also provide a link to the footage, and we let them know exactly what the issue was. So in this instance, you can see that there was contamination in their recycling container. If there were multiple service issues, say a customer had unacceptable items in both the recycling and they overfilled their yard waste container, they would see both of those occurrences noted here. In the next section in the middle, you can see some of the educational information that customers receive so they know exactly which materials go in each container. This section is customizable. We work with our municipal partners to tailor this list for every community. And the ability to customize really lets us focus on certain items that might be causing issues. If we're observing higher instances of plastic bags in the recycling, we can target our messaging around no bags. If we're rolling out a new organics program, we can call out any new guidelines. So this is a really flexible education method that goes directly to residents. And then, finally, I mentioned this before, we want to make sure we're equipping our customers with the right tools to take control of their service and prevent any service issues in the future. So we do that by including self-service links where they can modify their service, change communication preferences, view more Recycle Right resources, and more. So to wrap it up, I think we've seen some really great results when it comes to changing the way we educate our customers and our ability to influence behavior change to reduce contamination with this comprehensive solution. And I know Lisa and I are happy to answer any questions.
Fantastic. We do have one question that came in. So it appears that it's more on a recycling or a compost type of route. Have you used this technology on the trash trucks? And your thoughts on that, just to see more education to the customers from the trash side?
Yeah, I can answer that. So we have that opportunity. So I actually reside in California. I think someone alluded to SB 1383 earlier, where, organic materials like food waste are no longer allowed in the trash carts. And, one of the requirements is to monitor for contamination in all material streams. So the WM Smart Truck program has been, a really great solution to help with compliance for that kind of regulation.
I would also say, and Lisa, you could chime in. I know that we've talked about this from a residential perspective, but I do believe we also provides this type of service to our commercial industrial customers.
Yes, that's correct. Our commercial customers do get the same type of communications as we do the residential side.
And has this been utilized in Ohio?
Yes. we've been doing the commercial side of this for quite a few years, and now we're introducing into the residential side.
All right, our last person on our panel for today in regards to AI technology is Samantha Longshore. She is the Community Program Manager at the Recycling Partnership. And thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Lindsay.
And yes, we can see your presentation.
Excellent, thank you. All right, well, looking forward to talking a little bit more about, again, some artificial intelligence technology to improve recycling from the Recycling Partnership's perspective. So again, today we'll talk about some technology in MRFs, some technology in multifamily applications, drop-off centers, as well as curbside. And some of these technologies we've talked about a little bit earlier with some of our earlier presenters. So again, as Lindsay mentioned, my name is Samantha Longshore, and I'm a Community Program Manager for the Recycling Partnership. For those that aren't familiar with the Recycling Partnership, I wanted to quickly share our core values. These are the things that guide us in our work. And one that really speaks to me is embracing change and driving action. So prior to joining the partnership, I served as the Resource Recovery Program Manager for the city of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And working for a municipality, you know that everyone's wearing a lot of hats, trying to accomplish a lot, and often with little. And I always loved the partnership's position of being able to work with communities all over the country to learn a lot of lessons and then share that information so that we could make changes and we could drive action without having to reinvent the wheel when we're already doing so much. So that one really resonates with me because it meant a lot to me then and continues to mean a lot to me now. And today is a perfect example. So I'm really happy to be here sharing some of those lessons and that information with you today from our experiences. So quickly, why do we exist? Well, because the recycling system needs our help, all of our help. And since 2014, the Recycling Partnership has been solving for circularity. We work throughout the entire recycling supply chain and are the strategic partner of choice to transform the U.S. residential recycling system and activate that circular economy. And our chief goal is to make it as easy for all Americans to recycle something properly as it is to throw something away. And why is this our goal? Well, 40 million homes in the U.S. can't recycle as easily at home as they can throw something away. And for those that can, that do have that access, we're still missing 40% of our recyclable materials that are currently being thrown into the trash. So that's a big marching order. And how do we accomplish this? We typically leverage private dollars, but also federal and state grants to put to work in communities to improve recycling infrastructure and education. And we do that first by increasing access to recycling, first and foremost. Once people have access, we look to increase the capture of recyclables. And then we want to improve the quality of those recyclables. And here are a few of our community impacts. The slide was just updated, and I'm sure it's out of date again. But again, you'll see, you know, we've worked with over 3,000 communities. We've kept 770 million pounds of recyclables out of the landfill, distributed more than 1.3 million carts on the ground, and we're moving every day. So we're really proud of these results, but we know that we still have a lot of work to do. And quickly, I wanted to show a quick map of the US showing some of our work in different places. As you can see, we've done a lot of different types of projects, multifamily, education grants, CART grants, MRF grants, research and education. And then you'll see a few states highlighted in green, and that's where we're doing regional and statewide system change. So you'll see Ohio on there. And that statewide and regional work is really where I find myself focusing as well. And I'm excited to be jumping into a lot of work in Ohio as well. So now let's dig into some of the technologies that we've learned about together to fight contamination, to improve quality, to drive down costs, keep people safer, and keep our systems and our programs running smoothly and efficiently. So this is some brand new tech. We are looking at partnering on AI-powered scanners to help with MRF measurement. It's so new that we don't have any projects completed, but we think we may have some granted by Q1, Q2 of next year. And these scanners use computer vision with the goal of identifying everything in the recycling stream, from broad categories like PET to highly specific items like cat food tins. And with this data, the hope is that it can assist in several areas. So with an understanding of the stream in our facilities, making decisions about what equipment to retrofit or perhaps what new equipment our facilities need may be easier. And that's due to understanding more specifically what items are coming into the facility, how material trends are changing, and how that affects what we're fighting, and also what we're not catching with our existing equipment. So that helps us answer questions like, are our opticals keeping up with the increase of plastic? How is our burden depth changing with the lightweighting of materials? It may also give insight into staffing and other operational decisions, including, ideally, relieving some of the issues that we have with the tight labor force. I know at our MRF in Milwaukee, we did residue tests every month to see what was coming in, but also how our sorting was keeping up. And that is a labor-intensive process. It involved hand sorting 500-pound samples from the residue stream, but it also gave us great data on how we were doing and where we could improve. So imagine receiving that information automatically and on a grander scale. That was definitely on our wish list. Additionally, this could give us specific educational guidance to share with our communities. Is everyone crushing their cans and we're losing it from the polishing screen? Is there an increase in batteries, electronics? Well, then maybe we need to run a more comprehensive educational campaign around this item. And then we have the data to back up the need for this outreach. So again, not too many specifics to share on this just yet, but you can reach out to us with interest. And we also have several companies listed here that you can talk to about where they're at with this technology. Next, I want to talk specifically about robots. There's an increasing number of automation options available, a lot of existing automation options that are, getting better, new models, different retrofits. Actually, just a couple weeks ago, I visited a Balcones MRF in Austin, and they were using opticals for paper QC. So a lot of neat things happening out there, but for the moment, for this presentation, we're just going to talk robots. And robots currently have a great fit for quality control. They can also be used to capture a new commodity or capture commodities that are recycled in the wrong way. Think about that crushed aluminum. But we feel like they really shine in quality control right now compared to other equipment options. One of the reasons for this is that you're seeing newer, smaller models that can fit existing spaces and conveyor belt arrangements. So it's reducing the need for extensive retrofit projects. They also provide resilience during difficult labor markets by providing a high level of sorting. And they may also allow for upskilling our existing labor. So with that, more equipment comes more maintenance needs, and some of that is specialized. And using the information gathered by this AI, we can make improvements, adjustments, changes in education to help us reduce downtime and make other operational tweaks to improve efficiency. Some of the downsides we've seen, again, can be that space concern depending on the model. Sometimes the space in your MRF is tight. You may have to consider new conveyance methods or access for maintenance if you don't have a lot of floor space around the install area. We've also seen pilots most often looking at the speed of belts, the incline of belts, the width, and the subsequent burden depth of materials to find where a robot may struggle. So depending on the speed, especially the burden depth, these are the things to consider because they can lead to a robot being inefficient or ineffective. We would always recommend looking to examples of other MRFs if you can to find something similar to the install that you're thinking about to see how they're working in those areas. Also included with the slides for my presentation today, you'll also find the Recycling Partnerships MRF one-pager. This document includes links to our tools for fighting contamination, as well as a MRF survey. So you can work with all of your partners to set a very clear list of what's accepted and what's not. Maybe which can be advertised and others that shouldn't. So you can spark really deep and helpful conversations around your materials list. There is also information about our measurement goals and how to connect with us about our material composition grants, using the AI scanners that we spoke about earlier to help create data profiles on your facility's material stream, and to help all of us gain more insight into our composition of those streams. And on the second page, you'll find information about our material specific granting. That would be for polypropylene, UVCs, PET, and film and flexibles. As an example of this, a polypropylene grant to Rumpke, which was one of our first MRF grants, allowed that entire MRF shed to begin accepting that material. So we've seen the possibility for really big impact. But we also want to hear about any other retrofit or new build needs that you might have that fall outside of those material specific categories. So we always just recommend reaching out. Let's have a conversation and maybe we can help. So next we're going to move into AI technology that we've used in multifamily applications. And again, these have been trials of new technology. So we're testing them in a diverse set of communities and across project types. So these are just initial experiences and perspectives, not necessarily the final word. So the first is Zabble. Zabble is a phone app that we use most extensively as part of the Do You Recycle Challenge. And this was a voluntary pilot challenge focused on improving recycling access and education for multifamily communities across the city of Atlanta. When I first came into, the waste realm specifically, that challenge in Atlanta was one of the first things that I saw and learned about. So we found Zabble to be a powerful data-driven tool that could help kickstart projects, as they wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel when it came to creating a means for tracking volume and contamination. By snapping a picture of a container, the app will suggest a fullness level and contaminants that it identifies. And this is nice because it can also help with onboarding new team members and kind of closing that knowledge gap. It provides insights to help pinpoint contamination hotspots that can be within a single building or across a portfolio. And as we saw, it can be helpful in zero waste or anti-contamination campaigns. A couple struggles that we did find was that there is still staff time involved and a need to be on site as the user needs to take that physical photo in person to gather the data. For on-site management teams, this is a little bit easier, but if you're spread over a portfolio, if you're not on site at all of your buildings full time, this was a little more difficult to manage. And lastly, Zabble does come with higher operational costs. Its findings could help drive down some operational costs by lowering contamination fees, assisting with right sizing of containers and pickup frequency needs. But this requires justifying that before you get the data from the app. So looking to other projects and their findings can be really helpful in justifying its use. And now, so you'll be familiar with this one, but we're going to talk a little bit about some of our first pilot projects with Compology, which is now part of the Roadrunner family. So using their cameras and AI technology, we're looking for benefits in a few areas. Some of the benefits we're hearing from our grantees is that the system allows for remote quality control, meaning that you can view a container from your dashboard rather than having to make regular rounds to check for contamination or illegal dumping. You also have the ability to decide if a certain type of contaminant is worth a drive to the site and when it's not. So we see a strong benefit for haulers, as the technology and its container fullness tracking could help with rerouting exercises to find and set up the most efficient routes and collection schedules. Following in that same vein, it has the potential for collection efficiencies if you're able to change how frequently your containers are collected. So with these aspects, Compology can give you this high-level view of your operations. One difficulty that we found with the technology in a multifamily application is that you often have collections in front-load containers, which are collected as part of an existing route. And if you're just one customer on a route, you may not have the ability to use the fullness information to adjust your collection schedule or frequency. Another fun one is that we learned on a project that a container with a white color on the interior led to less accurate readings. So just an example of interesting things that we're learning along the way and that might change with tweaks and improvements in the future. So switching gears just slightly, we'll look at the same technology, but in drop-off applications. where we've currently found more potential for this to thrive. So as we discussed in multifamily applications, we've found less flexibility to use the technology to its fullest potential at the moment. Again, kind of due to those set schedules and the type of containers that you might find. However, in drop-off applications, use of these cameras on roll-off containers is really ideal. The collection of one container at a time can provide a bit more flexibility in your scheduling and collection frequency to take advantage of the fullness data. With that comes reductions in collection and labor costs. Lowering the number of pickups can reduce costs and man hours, and the ability to review a camera when contaminants are flagged allows for that efficient quality control that we discussed earlier. Again, do I need to go out or is this a smaller item? The ability to view a camera reduces the need, again, for those existing rounds of inspection. And in its place, you can have targeted site visits to remediate issues you think are necessary. Along with this efficient quality control option, a request we've had from the field is the development of contamination reports that allow site teams to choose the contaminants that they want to be made aware of quickly, as opposed to all contaminants. So giving them a quick turnaround time from notice to remediation for those issues that they deem most harmful. We've also found that in smaller sites where containers need to be moved for access to another container during collection, that moved container might show as being collected, though it was simply moved out of the way on that day. So other interesting things that we're working through. And many of the drop-off quality improvement projects we talked to mentioned that drop-off operations are some of their largest budget spends across all of their services, especially with the increase in transportation costs we've seen over the last few years, really significant. So all parties continue to work together on reporting and to identify improvements that will help site teams in their implementation and use of this technology. And finally, our last set of technology pilots that I'd like to share with you today can be found in our curbside recycling projects. So again, we have Prairie Robotics. We currently have a pilot program underway in East Lansing, Michigan, in which we are using Prairie Robotics cameras and artificial intelligence to fight contamination. So the cameras, again, are installed at the top of the hopper. There are 2 automated recycling trucks, and when the cart is tipped into the truck, a photo is taken of that material in the hopper. The artificial intelligence identifies the contaminants in the photo, labels them, and then blurs out the rest of the photo. So it gives a little bit more privacy there. Then a postcard with that photo is sent to the household using the GPS information from the system. So the system also has a dashboard, which we saw earlier, which was wonderful, for the community to use, which shows where collections have occurred on the map, which containers were contaminated, and where there's a lot of contamination. So again, you recall seeing that heat map. And we're really excited about this project for a few reasons. The first being that in our Feet on the Street programs, typically an individual would be opening cart lids, looking for contaminants, and leaving educational warnings, so a warning tag. And we found in these projects that they are most effective in driving down contamination without reducing participation when carts are rejected for collection and must be cleaned up before the next service. While leaving a warning tag, but tipping the cart anyway can see reductions in contamination, they're typically just not as significant as when cart rejections are used. So this is a different kind of warn-only setting where instead of the cart tag, they're receiving the postcard showing their individual cart contents. So we're curious to see what the impacts of that will be. And we're accumulating baseline data now. And while we do so, we're also working with The Ohio State University to develop a methodology for testing the effectiveness of this technology, as well as messaging. So some households will receive postcards with our standard message with Cardi, who you'll see pictured in the middle. And other households will receive postcards with what we call a moral nudge. And that's the image of the landfill on the right. So we've tested this messaging in other applications, and the landfill scored really highly. So this is also a continuation of previous research. And last but not least, we have the Recyclist app. The Recycling Partnership was pivotal in the design of this app. We're really heavily involved, and this helps communities track set out, participation, and contamination rates over time. So some like unlike some of the other technology we've discussed today, this one is a well-established tool that the Recycling Partnership uses on all of our Feet of the Street projects. And it doesn't use artificial technology at the moment, but it is an extremely helpful technology. So I thought I'd share this with you today to close out the presentation. So while this app has been proprietary, we have begun looking at ways to open access to communities so that they could partner directly with Recyclist to help with the community's data tracking needs for program and quality improvement projects. Our first community to try this arrangement
One of these gifts
is in Ohio, in fact, and there's a cost associated. But this is something that we'd like to explore more where there's interest. So again, I wanted to share some of the outcomes from one of our Feet on the Street projects that use the Recyclist app. The community saw a 40% decrease in contamination as a result of the Feet on the Street program and removing carts from offending homes. So households could contact their community and complete a brief education course to have their recycling cart returned. With the public seeing that the city is paying attention to their recycling and providing feedback, we also saw material capture increase as well. And in addition to these results, use of the Recyclist app allowed the city to develop what we call portraits of typical recyclers and connected those portraits to specific addresses. So this allows the city to efficiently target households with outreach materials that are customized to be issue specific. Such as reluctant recyclers who may have not responded to the tags on their carts and continue to put contaminants into their recycling carts. Another group was the generated list of non-participants. In this case, it turned out that 800 homes were not setting out recycling in the community at all. So having this list allows the city to directly connect with those homes versus a blanket recycling participation awareness campaign. So you can be really smart with your marketing dollars in this way. So these are exciting developments in the behavior change space. And what we see is the future of household engagement to maximize quality, program performance, and tons captured. So thank you so much, everyone. And we'll open it up for some questions and feedback.
Thank you, Samantha. I greatly appreciate that. And it's exciting to see the different technology. It really is, and how they all have the benefits and in their certain spots. You know what I mean? It's not a one shoe that fits all feet, but it's exciting how things are developing and expanding. We do have one hand up, John, if you'll unmute and ask your question.
Sure. Yeah, it's really not a question. It's more of a comment that I wanted to share with the group. Only because I've been asked this a couple times, and it's do we see the AI technology replacing the feet on the ground technology or process? And personally, we do not here in Montgomery County. There are smaller communities that really feel that the Feet on the Ground program is better for them, that application is better for them. And they're really more interested in maintaining that program versus the AI. So I just wanted to let folks know. I will share, what our findings are with EPA when we get finished to kind of be able to compare, the efficiencies of the two types of system. Samantha, I don't know from your standpoint if you've seen, any major differences in the reduction of contamination using AI versus feet on the ground. Have you guys done that analytic yet?
Yeah, so we haven't completed our first pilot here yet. So again, they're doing some baseline data. So, and that's kind of what we're looking at too, because we're seeing usually if you're rejecting the cart, that is really helpful in changing behavior. So this is kind of new for us, but that's typically how we work. So we're doing a lot of these different pilots to see what is more effective in changing behavior and dropping that contamination. And then we can also look at that compared to, what is the cost? And again, different local governments have different resources. This works great on an automated cart. If you're semi-automated, maybe it's not working that well for you, and maybe that's somewhere where feet on the street, needs to stay. But that's our hope. We really like to see the data and see what's most efficient, so that we have, things that can be applicable for different folks. So personally, really excited to see, how this goes, and also just the public feedback on it. Looking at your own cart, does that really make you change, as opposed to, a circle tag? So looking forward to results.
And I'm just so thankful that you guys are doing some of these expanded projects. I mean, it's always adding tools to our toolbox across, in every community and every different type of community and processing. So thanks for your continuous advancers of that. Go ahead, whoever. Maybe that was just missed Mark. All right, and I guess the other piece I should say is that if you do have ideas or challenges, just speak up. I mean, the communication and the brainstorming is how a lot of we all can make our programs better. So just reach out to anyone. Has any of these AI pilot projects utilized pre and post sorts, like the feet on the ground or the feet on the street programs?
Yeah, for all of our quality improvement projects, so both the ones that are using the Compology cameras, the ones that are using Prairie Robotics, the Zabel, the feet on the street, all of them, we always do a pre-sort and a post. Some of those technologies, though, like Compology, we are, I guess another piece is looking at, can we use that to get pre and post information? So that's another way that we're kind of using it both, is that helpful for us in driving it down, but maybe is this another way for us to measure as well?
Very good. All right. Well, that concludes our panel discussion. Focusing on AI technology to improve recycling. And again, thank you to each and every one of our presenters for sharing their niche and what we can do to help improve our programs across Ohio. Next, we're going to move to Matt and Emily, who are going to share a program or some ideas on best management practices and resources when establishing a district-funded grant program. So John talked about a grant-funded program that Montgomery County does, and we're going to talk a little bit about some ideas and things to make it a little bit better.
That work for everybody? See my presentation?
Yes.
Great. Hi, everybody. Just a quick presentation today to talk about compliance assistance that is offered by Ohio EPA, or more as a general topic for solid waste management districts to consider. You all are aware the districts and nonprofit organizations as well, or trade organizations, etc., that have grant programs. Anything like the pollution prevention programs, market development activities, there's all sorts of ways, including consortiums, that we work with various businesses and institutions around the state. And we just want to sort of bring up the topic of considering who you're funding and also making certain that they're good players as far as making certain they're up to date on all their permits. Or any other issues that might be happening. I think there have been a couple cases throughout the years where we've had our internal grant program as well as some local grant programs where there have been some issues discovered after the fact, after they've been funding. So it was questioned, what did you guys do on your end? So just some, I guess, best practices to consider when you're developing your grant applications is to at least, at a minimum, include a statement or a checkbox or something they have to check off to say that indicating that, yes, we are in compliance with all all permits, and we have all the permits we need. We aren't out of compliance, have ongoing notices of violations, that sort of thing. And also, we recommend that you can include a link or at least the contact information for our Office of Compliance Assistance and Pollution Prevention. There's also the ability to do a compliance check if you wanted to go to that route. We have all of our notices of violations in our eDoc system. And if anybody's ever tried to use that, you know, it can be quite cumbersome to search down to the level of an individual entity. It's all in there, and if you know how to use it, maybe it can be done. And you know, we're definitely willing to help with you know, helping you to learn that system. Although the amount of work and time that can be done to look all these organizations is, I'm not certain that Ohio EPA would necessarily take on the task of doing that for you, but we definitely would like to assist if that's the route you want to go to. So, you know, talking about the Office of Compliance Assistance and Pollution Prevention, I want to go to the next slide and introduce Emily Eskridge, who is the supervisor for that office. So I'll let you talk about this slide and all the different services you guys offer, which is pretty amazing. That, you know, they are a confidential organization. Actually, the only people within our organization that have the ability to have confidentiality statements. You want to take over, Emily?
Sure. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Thank you for having me this morning. I'm one of actually 2 supervisors in our Office of Compliance Assistance and Pollution Prevention. I am on the compliance assistance side, so I supervise the environmental assistance unit. April and I know like Dave and Marie are here. They're part of our RSU side, which does our recycling litter prevention grant, Ohio Materials Marketplace, and our recognition programs and stuff like that as well. So it sounds like you'll already have a relationship with that side, but maybe would like to learn a little bit more about what we do on the compliance assistance side. So the group that the team that I supervise is actually mostly based in our district offices. We have 5 district offices around the state. So depending on who you work with, may be more local to your actual solid waste management district, or you may be able to refer a business to someone who's a little bit more local. We provide both in person, on site, and virtual assistance. So you can contact us in a variety of different ways, both on through like chat or hotline, or just directly. I can put a link in the chat as well for just the direct contacts to our district representatives on the compliance assistance side. Essentially, like Matt was talking about, if you are providing a grant to a business and you think that, you know, they may want some assistance from our agency to look at, you know, do they have all their permits in place? Maybe they're new and they're trying to get their permits in place. Maybe they're unsure. Maybe they don't need a permit. They're de minimis. We can help them with those calculations. We can help them with their permitting status, like applying for permits. We can provide general guidance on who to talk with. We typically assist small businesses. We'll point anybody in the right direction though. So even if they're a larger business and they're just like, we just don't know where to start, we are more than happy to provide assistance getting them in the right direction. So it's really a great resource for any businesses you may fund through a grant program to reach out to us to try to determine what they need or don't need for themselves. Or, you know, maybe they're concerned because they've been doing something for a while and, you know, as part of this process, they're like, oh, we actually do need a permit. We're a confidential shop. It's not that we're going to go out there. We don't do compliance inspections to where on the regulatory side there would be an NOV issued. We essentially can go out, offer advice, and provide assistance to them. Leave it to them to kind of carry it forward or help them carry it forward. But it's kind of up to them what advice they take from us. So that is one thing I would lead with, is that we don't guarantee compliance, but we help businesses get there. So if you're looking for like a compliance review, like Matt talked about earlier, going through eDoc probably is the best way for those particular businesses as well. If you need anything from us, I did put 2 QR codes on this slide if you're looking to refer people to our services. One of them is our customer support center. So our customer support center has our live chat, which is available Monday through Friday, 8 through 5. There's also a hotline available at the same time. That chat is staffed by both my group and our RSU group. So we have people on it during that time at all times. Our website also has a lot of great information on it as well. Or like I said, I can provide our contact information for my group in the chat for everyone if they're thinking of a business right now that could use our services. It's a great service. We're free. It's confidential, so we're not gonna, go running to the regulatory side and say, "Oh my gosh, look at this." It really is meant to help businesses because ultimately, if they can be in compliance, we all win. At the end of the day, they're in compliance, they're happy. We've helped them get there, and we want them to be successful. So. Thank you for your time, and I'll go ahead and stick our contact information in the chat.
Thanks, Emily. I believe, just the basic additions of adding a statement, to ask are you in compliance, and to include that contact information, including the QR codes in your application would probably be the basic, the best practices that you could do in your grant program. And I don't know if, these slides will be available through the work group when we post all the information and presentations from this meeting today on our website. But if you need it in some other form, whether it be in like a Word document or something, I'm sure we can get that to you to include it. So I think that's all we got. Is there any questions?
Thank you, Matt and Emily. That was a very good presentation and some great ideas. And it is nice to know that there is a free and confidential option to help businesses, especially coming from, rural communities where you might not know where to turn to. So thank you. If there's any questions, please continue to put those in the chat. And I'm going to turn it over to April. April Stevens, who is the grant supervisor at the Division of Environmental and Financial Assistance.
Thank you. And hopefully you guys see my PowerPoint?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, as Emily mentioned, I am the other supervisor within the Office of Compliance Assistance and Pollution Prevention. And I know I usually say hi to you guys every time we have this meeting. So I think you all know me by now. But today, usually I talk about our grant program, which just to plug, that is active. That launched on November 7th. So feel free to let us know if you have any questions about the Ohio EPA Recycling and Litter Prevention Grant Program. We are accepting applications right now for that, and those that closes on February 3rd. But hopefully you have all heard about the US EPA Bipartisan Infrastructure Law grants. Those were announced on November 15th on National Recycling Day. They released the 3 different grants that are being available through this program to support recycling programs and infrastructure and to expand access to recycling and compost programs. And so this is an annual program. I think it was 5 years total. I think they combined 22 and 23. So we're seeing that right now. And then there'll be, I think, 3 more years of funding through 2026. So I'm just going to give a brief overview of those 3 programs. So again, 3 grants, the Solid Waste Infrastructure for Recycling, or SWIFR, grants for states and territories. There's a SWIFR grant for political subdivisions, and then the Recycling Education and Outreach grant. So the first one, that's the one for us. For Ohio EPA will be applying for the SWIFR grant program for states and territories. That is non-competitive, so we just need to tell them what we're looking at. So far, the guidance that we've gotten is out of the 30 million available, each state can probably plan to receive between $300,000 and $500,000. And then there are programmatic factors that can increase that award up to a max of 1.5 million. So the goal of this one, the state and territory program, is to improve post-consumer material management programs through planning, data collection, and supporting state-led implementation of plans. So we are working right now to come up with some ideas of what we're going to do with that, and we need to have our first draft of a work plan to US EPA in January. So we are working on that right now. The next program is the Swiffer grant for political subdivisions. So this includes hopefully a lot of you guys. So as solid waste management districts are considered local governments. So this is the one that hopefully some of you guys are interested in applying for. This one is competitive, however, there's 40 million available in fiscal year 23. This one can be used for infrastructure. So things to improve post-consumer material management programs like with municipal recycling and improving local waste management systems. So this one, applications are due January 16th. There is a notice of intent to participate that's optional, and that's due December 15th. But again, that's an optional thing you can do, but those applications are due on January 16th, and that is a hard deadline. While we can't apply for this one, we would love to help out, and we see our role as helping support and assist local communities. So anything we can do to help with that, we are here for you. And then finally, the Recycling Education and Outreach Grant Program. This one is also competitive, and this one is open to all of the groups. So states, local governments, nonprofit organizations, and public-private partnerships. Again, this one is competitive, and we see this one as being probably highly competitive. They're wanting to do at least one grant award per region, but you know, I have a feeling it probably won't be more than 2 grant awards per region. There's only 30 million available in this one, but this one is for recycling, education, and outreach projects only. There is a Justice 40 component of this. And what that is it means that 40% of the overall benefit is made to disadvantaged communities. In addition, the entire program has a 20% set aside allocated to low-income communities, rural communities, and communities identified as the Native American. So that's a big aspect of this part of the grant. So keep that in mind when we're thinking of who may apply and where we may do work. We would like to apply for this one with some statewide partners, so we are actively looking for partners for this. We will be doing a notice of intent to participate by November 15th. It is optional, but we will be putting one in. And then the application for this one is due January 16th. And I know Chet is on here as well. We wanted to mention, Chet, are you here? And
I get to say it.
oh, you get to say it. I can say
I
it too, Lindsay,
do.
but go ahead. You go ahead.
So we do, we would like to see your intentions, and if you are going to apply for the local government, the political subdivision grant, please email Chet, chet.cheney@epaohio.gov. And by next Wednesday, that's Wednesday, December the 7th, of your intent to apply. We're just trying to reach out just to make sure that if we can partner in any way or if we can support you, that we have enough, that we're all on the same page, and that we're just making sure that we can support and try to get some of this funds here in Ohio and locally to you guys. So again, if you are interested or going to have any inkling to apply for the local government, the political subdivision grant, please email Chet by next Wednesday, December the 7th.
Yeah, and Dave put links to each grant program in the chat. You can also sign up for educational webinars. They've already had 2, but they're doing more. So if you're interested, I would definitely sign up for those webinars. The guidance is still forthcoming on a lot of this. There's still a lot of questions, but we have listened to the ones so far. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of us.
Do you need to know what their intent for the grant is?
Sorry.
Do you need to know what their intent for the grant is as well?
The description.
If you'll add the description, very good, Dave. If you will add your description or your ideas for your intent to apply in the email to Chet, please, that would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, Dave. Right. John has a question.
Hi, April, real quick. I just wanted to make sure I understood you correctly. So it's your understanding, and it's my understanding too, but again, I just want to clarify that these grants are going to be open over the next 5 years. So it's going to be kind of like Ohio EPA. You can apply for these on an annual basis, correct?
That is our understanding. We think we kind of missed that first one. I think the 5 years I think included fiscal year or federal program year 22. So I think they've combined 22 and 23 into this cycle, and then there'll be 4 more after this, or 3 more after this, because it's 23, 24, 25, 26. So I think it's 3 more after this, but 4 total. But the funding was for 5 years. So yeah, we anticipate this be ongoing, and there being more opportunities to apply.
Great, thank you.
It looks like Beth has a hand up as well.
This builds off of John's question. So the dollar amounts that you listed in your slide are national pools of money over all of the regions. And is that also inclusive? That is the whole ball of wax for the 5-year period, correct? Or is that annually?
That's just for this year, for this
Okay.
program year. So again, we think that was doubled, and that the levels might be lower in the subsequent years. I think it was, and Dave, if you're on here, he's got the numbers in front of him. I think it was like 115 million. No, it's 275 million total for
75
each
million, yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Yep. But
It
they,
was 275 million for the Swiffer one, the infrastructure, then 75 million for the REO, the Recycling Education Outreach. But like April said, they were kind of behind getting the 2022 RFP, so they combined this RFA, sorry, is for the fiscal year 22 and 23.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, so if funding levels may kind of drop in half after this, just depending if they're, doing it per year after that, or, if they don't allocate all the funds, maybe things will be different, but, we're really not sure.
Yeah, and in the webinar, Beth, last week, I don't think they're not even really focusing on the schedule for the next fiscal year. They're just worried about, like April said, getting things out here. I mean, they're new programs for both programs are new, and you can tell that they're kind of finding their way.
And
lack of
this
a better
this
term.
this funding cycle mirrors yours, correct? So it goes July 1st to June 20, June 30th. They're mid-year
No.
cycles.
No, they the US EPA runs on a different fiscal cycle. Their fiscal year starts October 1st. But I think we're in the middle of that program year, so I think they're planning on making awards this summer. So it may look like it mirrors it, but I think it's
It
going
was
to
a
be.
serendipitous thing.
Yeah, it just happened
Okay.
that way. I would,
Yeah.
I would imagine that could be adjusted in future years based on the actual program years for federal.
Okay, thank you.
From what we heard from there was a webinar yesterday for the Recycling Education Outreach one, and I'm assuming it is there's one coming up for the sub political subdivisions, which would be most of the districts. Is the funding will be released, probably awarded this summer, but project will probably start, like April said, like October 1 of 2023, because that's the beginning of the federal year. But I think you have 3 years to get your project done. At least that's what we heard yesterday with the Recycling Education Outreach grants. And like we put in the chat the RFAs for both of them. So if you want some light lunch reading, they're about 59 pages. They're both there, and they're also on the main page for each grant program.
Thank you, Dave, for that added information. And we do encourage you to register for those webinars. And again, just a quick reminder that if you are applying or have an intention to apply for that political subdivision grant, please email your project, your intent and project description to Chet by next Wednesday, December the 7th. That concludes our official part of the agenda, and we'll open it up for it is 12 o'clock, so I know just as timely that we can, but if there is any other updates from the solid waste district management, updates is the last piece. But if you do need to go, we totally understand that as well. And if you, one last question or one last housekeeping before people do bail off of here, if you do happen to have any other follow-up questions that pop in your mind over lunch, feel free to email those to myself or Jeff. Our emails are in the chat for you to send us that email, and we'll get you an answer.
I would like to take a moment. I know Carol Phillips didn't speak up, but she is still with her district and is planning to retire, as well as with Rob. And I think two of you may have been coordinators. Everybody references House Bill 592 back in 1988. Districts starting up a few years after that. You guys were around in the original years. That might be it. We might lose all the original coordinators with your guys' retirement, and I think that's a very significant thing we need to observe. So congratulations to you both. Enjoy retirement, and hopefully we don't hear from you guys too much in the future unless you're doing contract work.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate it. The dinosaurs are going to be extinct here soon.
Congratulations on both your retirements, and we do wish you the best.
Thank you.
Do you want to take a minute to say that you are looking for your administrative assistant?
Sure, Lindsay, thank you for that. We are still looking for an administrative assistant. Kim is on here too. Kim's been with our district for 29 years and will be taking over the reins when I leave in January. And we're looking for someone to fill her spot as assistant director. So if any of you, and I was specifically hinting towards Lindsay, but you seem to be kind of happy where you are. But if you want to come back over here, the seat is still open. And so if anybody has people that would like to move over to work in Licking County, send them our way, please.
Thanks, Carol. I did enjoy my time there. We do have a hand up from Athens Hawking. I think you're muted. I think you're muted. There you go. No. I think you're still muted.
Hi.
Hi, I'm so sorry.
Let's start again.
Yes.
I just wanted to congratulate and thank Michelle and Erica, our president and vice president of the Solid Waste District organization. They finished their terms this year, and I just want to thank them for their dedication and work for all of the solid waste districts. That's all. Thanks, guys.
Rob?
I was just going to tell Matt to take it easy on my two new guys because we're in the tail end of a planning phase. So he doesn't want to drag me out of retirement.
Oh boy.
Be hell to pay. You all take care. It was a pleasure over the years for all of you. And I look down through this list of names and I know so many of you. And honestly, it's been a pleasure working with all of you. I know we've had disagreements. I know that we haven't, but that's just in a day's business. And that's the way I always looked at it. Don't hold grudges.
With that, is there any other last thoughts, comments? I know I'm sorry that we were 5 minutes over, but just want to give one last shout out to make sure that everybody has said what they needed. Again, if you are planning on doing a grant intent, give that information to Chet by next Wednesday, December the 7th. Our emails are in the chat as well as the US EPA webinars. for that grant information. We are planning on putting the presentations on our website. I did include the link to that in the last reminder email, and I will be sending out another reminder email. It might take us a week, probably, maybe, to get the information up on the website, but I will send out a reminder once that hits. So thanks everyone for attending today's work group meeting, and our next meeting is March the 2nd. March 2, 2023. Please make sure that you add that to your calendars, and we shall see you then. Thanks, everyone. Have a happy holiday, and talk to you then. Bye.